Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie alongside Chris Balas and Anthony Broome, who's checking in from New York City, somewhere in Manhattan, I believe, at a Potbelly, where the Wi-Fi was just right. So Anthony, we will be joining him in the New York City area tomorrow, Chris and I, but going to be a fun trip out to Rutgers this weekend. We're going to preview that game, Michigan 8-0. Number 5 in the country in the college football playoff rankings, heading out to play a 4-4 Rutgers team that's fresh off a 31-0 loss to Minnesota. But let's start with Michigan and kind of where things are at, because obviously, a tough deal on Saturday night with the attacks, for Michigan State players. Plowed that ground pretty thoroughly throughout the week. But in terms of Michigan's mentality coming into this, from talking to people, it does seem like this team was very, very angry, as you would expect at the time. And it took a while for them to kind of calm things down, simmer down a little bit. But they've kind of channeled that energy from what we've heard a little bit. And it's kind of the someone else has to pay mentality that they're taking. And unfortunately, I think, at least in my opinion, unfortunately, not to jinx them, but for Rutgers, that's Rutgers. And, I think Michigan will come out pretty upset. But at the same time, they're going to come out recognizing that they still have everything in front of them. Like, football is still here. There's still 4 games to play in the regular season. Chris, how do you feel about how Michigan's going to play in terms of level of focus this week?
Workmanlike has been the word that everybody has used, and I think you're going to see it again. And everybody's like, oh, this is the game to air it out. And this is not the team to air it out against, This is a team that's going to play its safeties back again. And even Ohio State, I think you were the one that posted in that thread, in the chat thread, about how it's not like they were torching them deep, right, in that game.
Yeah, so Ohio State in that game, 1 for 4 on deep passes, was a 36-yard touchdown, but also an interception from Stroud. And all year, Rutgers is kind of taking that stuff away, as you would kind of expect with Greg Schiano's.
Yeah, Greg Schiano's a good coach. And so defensively, I have no doubt that they're going to play hard. Michigan can't make mistakes, and they could and still win this game because the Rutgers offense is so bad. What I would be watching out for in a game like this is, okay, you've got Wimsatt at quarterback now, and you know what, he can run. So do you pull out this, all of a sudden change your offense and do your run first quarterback thing and maybe do the option or whatever? Who knows what to expect there. So that's the only thing I would be wary of. They have no running backs, so their top running back is, I believe, out for the year, if I'm not mistaken. So basically that's it. So other than that, you go up there, take care of business, don't mess around, get up by a few scores, and hopefully coast to a victory and move on to Nebraska.
Yeah, and I am at a Potbelly right outside Times Square, so kind of pirate radioing this thing today. Apologies for any audio quality stuff that's going on, but I think we talked about it earlier this week, where it's similar to the last year's MSC week, where it's a different kind of refocusing down the stretch the rest of the way. So Jim Harbaugh has been transparent about, he's a little bit distracted, a little more on his plate. This is a week that tests Michigan's culture and its assistant coaching staff, because I feel like those guys have probably been a little more hands-on in terms of putting game plans together and just running practices and things like that. So, yeah, it's, the old Don Brown, what was the old Don Brown line? Like, solve your problems with aggression. Now, you don't solve your problems with assault. That's not how you solve your problems. But I think we're going to see an angry and focused Michigan team on Saturday. And to be frank with you, this is the worst team they've played since they've played Hawaii. So there's no excuse that it shouldn't look that way.
You think they're worse than UConn? I think they're better defensively.
Yeah. They all suck, so who cares?
There you have it. So
I agree. I think probably UConn's offense is better than Rutgers' offense, which isn't saying a ton. I do think Rutgers' defense has been good, and we'll talk about it, against bad teams, which is a start when you're a team that's kind of trying to climb out of the bottom of the Big Ten East. It's really tough to get over the top. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'll say this. The fact that we're saying, is Rutgers better than UConn? I think it kind of tells you all you need to know. UConn is still bad. So
yes, they are.
Yeah, it needs to. Again, I'm not going to put any expectations on this. We know what these last 2 games against Rutgers have looked like, but this is one, I think, where we will see them there's going to be a fire under them this week. This isn't one they'll want to sleepwalk through. There was a very clear message sent this week that Michigan, it's been workmanlike, and that's kind of, I'll say, a backhanded compliment in that I think that this team, it's time for style points. It's time to start finishing field goals or finishing drives with touchdowns instead of field goals. And I don't expect it to be 78-0 like that 2016 game was, but I do think this will be ugly and we'll see a focused team.
Yeah, it's a great segue because talking about Michigan's offense in this matchup, all the talk has surrounded the red zone struggles. I think they settled for 4 against Penn State, red zone field goals. And then Michigan State, you had 2 drives ending inside the 10 where you have to settle. And that kind of leaves a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth, even though you were moving the ball at will in both of those 2 games. But when you look at Rutgers' defense, I think they rank 130th in the country in touchdown percentage allowed. So they've allowed 15 touchdowns on 18 attempts down there.
Wow.
This is a good defense against bad teams. They also got lit up by Ohio State, lit up by Minnesota, both through the pass game with Ohio State and on the ground. Ohio State had 253 rushing yards. So they've been stout up front against other teams. But when the level of talent is, kind of at the level of a Michigan, Ohio State, and to a lesser extent, a Minnesota, they haven't necessarily played as well. But I think this is a good opportunity for those red zone drives and getting in there and being able to punch it in and try some different things out. I don't think you should just completely come out and start doing crazy different things than you've done. They have, there's been a lack of execution too. Olu Oluwatimi said that on Tuesday night, where it's not just the play calls. It's, kind of the marriage between the play calls and the players executing them, and the players know that they have to be better too.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know what? It's one of those things where you can get away with it. We've said this again, and it was through October, right? Last year that we had the same questions, and then all of a sudden November comes and they start scoring a little bit, which is great. So somebody asked a great question too about the jet sweep that's kind of disappeared recently. And there are things you can do down there. But number one, I think, is not telegraphing your plays. And I think somebody did a study where I think it was first and second down in the last 2 games where they were running on just about every first down in the red zone on both first and second down. So, you know what, if you're a defense, you're pinning your ears back and saying, hey, you know what, let's stop the run first, because that's probably what's coming. So, but they do self-scout, and that's what they need to do. Matt Weiss and those guys need to be better. And he said it yesterday. He said, yeah, we need to coach it better. And there have been times it's been execution as well, without a doubt. But against Ohio State, and that's what we're looking at, right, guys? I mean, Illinois might give them a game, or maybe they'll play them tougher. That's a solid football team, but that's a game you're going to beat at home if you play well or decently. But that's really what we're all looking at right now, is you cannot score field goals against these guys. You're going to have to score touchdowns. So that is really what we're concerned about at this point.
Yeah, and the last couple games, Brad Robbins has gotten a bit of a break. I think it is time to rest up Jake Moody's leg a little bit. It's nice to know that when you get down there and things do fall apart, because that's just football, that you have a guy that is good from anywhere from the automatic ones to the 54-yarders, the 55-yarders. It's not automatic from out there, but you know that that's in his repertoire. So it's nice to have, but not something you want to lean on. I think that some of what we're seeing is the byproduct of they are still breaking in a young quarterback, and there's things he's not seeing at times when that field shrinks down there. But the play calling, we've been harping on this. It needs to be a little more creative. I would love to see more pre-snap motion. Would love to see more of the A.J. Henning jet sweeps or some of those type of plays. And you know what? I know that they don't have a guy that's like a Nico Collins on this roster, but you got to take a shot to the end zone too, or take a shot close to it and give your guys a chance to make a play. I know this offense, when it's humming, they do the death by 1,000 paper cuts thing, and that's how they wear you down. But there is an explosiveness that's still kind of missing when they get down there. So, yeah, I don't know if that looks like getting the running backs more involved in the passing game. I love when they run that halfback angle, that play, Donovan Edwards, the wheel route stuff, I think is something you could use. Luke Schoonmaker down there, I think, can be a big target for you. So it just needs to be, I think everyone needs to be better down there. It's play calling, it's protection, it's your playmakers, all of it. It all needs to improve down there.
Yeah, no matter the play call, some of those negative plays, that's not on the play call. A play is never designed to go backwards. I know some plays have a higher percentage of doing that than others, and some of them have been slow developing, as we've talked about, which I don't like as much. But Blake Corum in this game, he continues his Heisman campaign. I don't expect him to have to rush 29 times, which is his average during Big Ten play, which is just amazing. So maybe we will see a little bit more of Donovan Edwards. I agree, Anthony. He's a matchup nightmare. Jacoby Windman, although he's got other things on his mind now as a suspended player, but he's probably seeing Donovan Edwards in his nightmares, and Luke Schoonmaker as well. flipping to the Michigan defense, Chris, you mentioned it with Gavin Wimsatt. I mean, I was talking to Dom Savino, who runs their radio pregame show over there. Stay tuned for that. I'll be appearing on a pre-recorded hit before the game for those guys. I know most people listen to the guest radio broadcast or the opposing team's radio broadcast, but he was saying that no, Gavin Wimsatt is not the best quarterback on this roster for this year. It's Noah Vedral, who we've seen over the last couple seasons, but Greg Schiano is pretty much throwing Gavin Wimsatt in because he knows he's the future. He wants him to get experience. He wants him to kind of learn on the fly. And, you know, I get it. I understand it. And, you know, I think that people there are for that because they know he's the future. But I don't think that's going to work out so well in a game like this. He's already struggled this season against any opponent. And, Chris, when you talk about the running, I agree. He's mobile. He's going to run. But this is a kid who took a huge shot to the head last week and got knocked out of that game. So
wow.
I'd be a little bit surprised if they just kind of start running him a ton against this Michigan defense. But Gavin Wimsatt, 16 for 40 on the season, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, is under pressure, completed 1 pass for 9 yards, been really rough there, and it's not a good offensive line. Looking at their offensive line, left tackle Willie Tyler III, JUCO transfer. Left guard J.D. Dorenzo, FCS transfer. Center Ireland Brown is a former defensive lineman. So it's kind of a makeshift offensive line. They have a couple playmakers on the outside. Aaron Cruikshank is a guy that Michigan fans know from scoring the big touchdown late in the 2020 game that most of us blocked out of our memory anyway. But he's dangerous. I think he can make a play in the return game. He has 2 kickoff return touchdowns in his career. And I think if Rutgers wants to keep this close, they're going to need something like that. But when you look at this Rutgers offense, it's pretty inept. What do you guys expect from the Michigan defense in this game?
Yeah, number one, just ask Jake Moody to kick the ball deep, right, and out of the end zone, and that takes care of that, and which he's been doing extremely well all year.
Should be nice weather, too.
It's going to be beautiful. 65 degrees, probably at kickoff. Feels like September, not November weather, which is fantastic. So that's how you eliminate that. Number two, just don't punt. Right, which has been a good formula the last few weeks. So, and then you don't have to worry about him returning any punts. So, but defensively, this is a game where I could see this kid just being overwhelmed and throwing a few picks. Right, this offensive line is so bad, and that they're going to get in there, probably without having to blitz. They can't run, so you're asking an awful lot of this kid, who I believe was the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why, to me, I think, okay, watch for something maybe a little bit unexpected here, where they put a little bit more on him with his legs than maybe you're accustomed to seeing. So especially when you're 16 of 40 and you can't throw the ball, and you're going to get, this is going to be the best pass rush he's probably faced all year to date. So, or they've faced. I think this is only his second start. So, but it's going to be, I think it'll be a little overwhelming for him. So, and more than anything, it's really going to be on the Michigan offense to move the ball, put up some points early, and because I don't see them, if they score 14 points, I think that could be enough to win this football game.
Yeah, and something about this Rutgers game over the last couple of years is that you've gotten honestly, maybe the best football game they've played all year in both of those seasons. So they're going to be on high. They'll be fired up, especially Michigan. They always bring out the best in most of their opponents, especially coming off a Big Ten title. It's going to be a night game, so everyone's fired up for that. I have this gut feeling, and maybe this is something that I should just be saving for later on when we get to predictions, but I think that Michigan's going to score on defense this week. I think that ball is going to be right for the picking. I wouldn't be surprised to see them. They talked about how these turnovers are looking for them to kind of snowball. I think this is a game when you're playing a young quarterback and a team that is so overwhelmed up front on the offensive line. I see havoc coming for Michigan's defense this week, and even last week. They were far from perfect. Got beat on some 50-50 balls. I think that this is again, it goes back to poor Rutgers. I think this is the team they're just going to have to feel the wrath this week. So, again, you look at keys to the game. Very simple, right? Don't kick the football. Score more points than the other team. Don't allow the other team to score any points.
Score more points than the other team. Wow, that is
some
good.
It's the hard-hitting stuff. I agree with you, though, man. I'd be disappointed, wouldn't you, if they didn't get a turnover or two in this game?
Yeah. Well, Iowa kind of makes a habit of doing it, but I just feel like when I watched that game that they played against Iowa, whatever it was, a month or so ago, that ball was just, there's no there's no rhyme or reason for anything they do offensively, and they have a young quarterback. So if this is going to be the week they do it, and I mean, this season's been such a blur already that I can't even remember when the last time they had a pick six or whatever it was. It's been a while, so I think this is the week that happens.
Yeah, I think last pick six was DJ Turner against Maryland last year, and the last defensive touchdown for Michigan was week 1, if I'm not mistaken, the scoop and score from DJ Turner. I agree with you. I think they need to force a couple. They don't need to because they're going to win, but it would be nice to force a couple turnovers. This is a team that's been pretty close. Steve Klinkscale, some members of the media getting him just fired up on Wednesday, asking about what do you need to do better. And every time, you know the answer with him. He wants more turnovers, and he said, half jokingly, I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up today, but we need to get the ball. We need to get the damn ball out, I think he said. So I thought that was funny. And they're stressing that it's something that they want to do. And you're right. I think with the lack of round game, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, Samuel Brown V, their running back, out for the season, had surgery on Monday. And like teams that have not been able to run the ball against Michigan, and that's been about every team, just have had no success on third down. Michigan State is the formula there. You look at it last week, they averaged 8.8 yards to go on third down. That's tough for Peyton Thorne, who's a redshirt junior. That's going to be extremely tough for Gavin Wimsatt, who's an 18-year-old, one of the youngest starting quarterbacks in the entire country, reclassified last year as a freshman. So, I think that is prime opportunity to get some turnovers. And we can talk about that as well in my predictions. Anthony alluding to that. I do have something like that worked up. Anything else before we get to our picks for this game? And
yeah, I think the V stands for 5, the 5th.
What an idiot I am. Yeah. I was just reading off the thing, off the box
That's
score.
okay.
I was wondering if that would get addressed or not, because it was going to get roasted in the YouTube comments.
That needed to get addressed.
That's okay.
I guess my last thought defensively is that something else that Klink spoke about yesterday was, they're going to mix up coverages and throw these quarterbacks off balance. I mean, Gavin Wimsatt is basically a freshman still. Like, that's his head will be spinning, I expect. So they might have a rogue touchdown drive or two in them, but there's just no reason that this should be even anything more than breaking a sweat, in my opinion.
It'd be disappointing if they scored a touchdown, even with Samuel Brown V out. So,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And you're right. And this is even a team. Michigan has had over 40 minutes of possession in each of the last 2 games against Penn State, a top 15, 20 type team, and Michigan State, a not very good team, but still 2 games in a row of that. Minnesota last week, over 40 minutes of possession against Rutgers. So the formula is there to really keep them off the scoreboard, and we'll talk about our predictions in a second. First, let's talk about our friends at PrizePicks. Football is in full swing. There isn't a better way to enjoy watching your favorite team than by playing daily fantasy with our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the simplest form of real money daily fantasy sports and just pits you against the numbers. Whether you're a fantasy sports nut or a casual fan looking to add some excitement to the games, PrizePicks is the perfect game for you. It's the best way to have action on the game in states like Michigan, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and over 70% of the United States. PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada, not Ontario. You simply select 2 to 5 players and predict if they will go more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. This week, I will be taking LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels more than 35.5 rushing yards. He's a really good runner. I think there'll be some opportunity there. Alabama's defense been a little suspect. And J.J. McCarthy, more than 225.5 passing and rushing yards combined against Rutgers. Hutch, our fantastic producer, has Aaron Rodgers, more than 250.5 pass and rush yards combined. And Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, more than 2.5 pass, rush, or receiving touchdowns. Maybe a Philly special there. What do you guys have this week?
Wait, don't the Packers play the Lions?
Yes. So
then hell yeah, I'm changing my pick to that, and I'm going more than. So there's one. Okay, so forget about the first one. The second one, I've got Aiden O'Connell less than 295.5 yards against that Iowa defense. That's still solid, even though they're, you know what, their offense is probably as bad as Rutgers, right, Anthony? I think those guys are just they're just terrible.
Yeah. Gosh, my picks this week, I want to be a little bit different than Clay. I'm going to go with, I believe that says 205.5 passing yards for JJ. I'm going more than that for JJ McCarthy. And then, goodness gracious, whatever the over on Blake Corum's rushing yard total is. I think the more than. I'm sorry. That's bad form on my part. It's like 135.5. Actually, I'm going to change that and go less than. I don't know that he's going to play enough, and I can actually see Michigan sort of dialing back his workload a bit, down the stretch here. Need to see more Donovan Edwards. Need to see a little bit more CJ Stokes. So those will be my picks. And also, guys, if you get involved with this, like I said, the 100% deposit match, if you win on a certain week, tweet us, send us a message on the message board, leave it in the YouTube comments. We'll shout you out next week. So trying to drive some more participation in this. It's a great, PrizePicks has been so much fun to track and adds a little more, usually I'll pick what the Michigan game is, but it adds a little more juice to whatever game you decide to watch. And usually great promos on there too. So shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks.
Yeah, and hit me up to commiserate if you lose as well, because I've been losing quite a bit, but it's still fun to play and follow, and you get that rush when you win. Download the PrizePicks app or visit prizepicks.com and sign up using the code Wolverine to get an instant 100% bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget, that's the PrizePicks app or prizepicks.com and the code Wolverine to claim your bonus today and take the viewing of your team to the next level this season. Let's do our predictions for this Michigan at Rutgers game. 7:30 kickoff in Piscataway, prime time. Michigan 26-point favorite. Last I looked, over under 45 points. I think the over under is going to push, and I think the score is going to be 45-0 Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if Rutgers scores. I think Michigan's going to get its second shutout of the season. I think it's going to be the second straight week that Rutgers gets shut out. I just think it's a terrible matchup. Michigan's going to come out fiery and kind of get this win. Workmanlike, I think, is a good way to put it. Head back home and move on to the final 3 games of the season.
Yeah, how good's their kicker?
He's pretty good. He's hit all of his plus 40, missed one outside of 50, but he's pretty good. So if they get close, you may get some points. I'm going
to go 37-6. I think they're going to get a couple field goals, probably one at the end of the game when Michigan's backups are in. They'll drive the field and, give the kids some work, but or in the fourth quarter or whatever. So that's what I'm looking at. And I think, it's going to be really, really hard for Rutgers to move the ball.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the last, 16 hours or so have been a bit of a blur. I think my staff pick was 52-7. So I'm going to stick with that. I think that Michigan will not have any resistance when they're on offense. I think they will finish most of those drives with touchdowns. If my math is correct, that would be 7 touchdowns and a field goal. So it's not going to be a drubbing the likes of which the 2016 team was able to deliver. I don't know that we'll ever see a Michigan team do that in Big Ten play again, but it will be. I don't see what's happened the last couple of years happening in this game. Michigan will win. Will do so comfortably. We're probably going to see a lot of Davis Warren in the second half.
Yeah, as a program, if you look at it, Michigan's ascending, getting better even from a high level already. And Rutgers is kind of stuck in neutral, trying to get over the hump a little bit. So I agree. I don't see that happening necessarily what did last year. That defense isn't as good even as it was last year, in my opinion. Offensive player of the game, I'm going to go with just the safest pick. I think it's going to be Blake Corum. I know, he probably, like I said earlier, won't get those 30 carries that he's damn near averaging during Big Ten play. But this Rutgers defense has not stopped good teams on the ground. Last week, Mo Ibrahim for Minnesota had 13 missed tackles. Blake Corum has been forcing those at a high rate, 53 for the season. I think he's going to be really tough to deal with if you're Rutgers, and I'll go with the guy who's been Michigan's player of the year so far.
Ditto.
Okay. We've kind of been hard on this guy, but it's a homecoming of sorts. Cornelius Johnson from Connecticut, I believe. Had a terrible game last week. I have a gut feeling he bounces back in a big way this week, and that we also see some more Andrel Anthony, which I feel like we've been calling for 10 weeks at this point. But Cornelius Johnson, weird gut feeling. I don't know why.
By we, he means him. Andrew Anthony, it's going to have a big game, but that's all right, man. Yeah,
well,
he's due, brother. He's due.
Yeah, he is due.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh said on Monday night that he would like to see more targets for Andrel Anthony. This is on his radio show with John Jansen, and he thinks that we will going forward. But also, I feel like he's been saying that too. And we just haven't seen it. And part of it's on Andrel too. I mean, I love the kid, but it's like, you know, at some point you are out there a decent amount. And Michigan's not throwing a ton, but yeah, Cornelius Johnson, I've said it before on several occasions. He seems to have a big game when you least expect it. When you're saying like, wait a minute, Cornelius Johnson played that much and he didn't do anything last game, then he seems to have a big one. And he played well at Rutgers 2 years ago in front of a raucous environment of like 3 people in the crowd in that triple overtime win. But it's a good pick there. Defensive player of the game, I'm going to go with Rod Moore, the guy who just seems to be all over the football. I think this, or all around the football at all times. I think this is a game, as we talked about with some of those turnovers, that we're going to see Michigan get a couple. And Rod Moore is a guy who, rewatching that Michigan State game, he baited Peyton Thorne into making that throw. I asked him about that on Monday. I think he's going to bait Gavin Wimsatt, an even worse and inexperienced quarterback, into something like that this weekend. So I'll go with him and maybe a defensive score, because Rod, if you remember watching him in high school, was a really good receiver too. And he looks pretty natural every time he has the ball in his hands. 3 picks on the year, leads Michigan in turnovers. I'll take Rod Moore.
I think Mike Morris is going to have a big game rushing the passer. I think he's going to have a couple sacks here and get a lot of pressures. Who was it? Was it Mike Elston said on Monday night that he was getting chipped a lot by tight ends now because he's earned that, right? He has really come on to the point where he's earned that added attention, just as they hoped he would. He's been outstanding. I'd love to see him come back for another year next year, by the way. I hope they're working on that because that could be huge for the defense. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, speaking of defensive backs that have wide receiver backgrounds and that are ascending, so to speak, I'm looking at Will Johnson this week. It seems like, I don't know, Chris, maybe you can speak to this. It seems like we're going to get a little bit more of him. I don't know what the status of Jamon Green is, but Will Johnson, I think, is a guy, regardless of Jamon Green's situation, that every week you just kind of see him take another step. And it's not showing up in the box score, but man, he's been impressive, and he looks the part out there, and I think he'll have an opportunity. And if Michigan has its little turnover fest, like I think it will, I think he'll be a part of that.
Yeah, and Steve Klinkskill said on Wednesday that he's going to be playing more regardless, but the Jamon Green situation, potential for him not playing, will only increase that. So I think that's a good pick there. And speaking of Mike Morris, man, I would love to see him come back as well. But then you look at, not that this means anything because we're through 8 games, but Mel Kiper today, his big board has Mike Morris as the 22nd best player or pro prospect in all of college football. So
well, then forget I said that. Go make your money, young man, if that's the case.
If that's the case, and it's his big board, it's not a mock draft, so it's not saying he's first round, but he's impressed some people. I think the end of the year for him, the last 5-6 games, maybe 7, could be huge for him in terms of, how he finishes, because he's been really good so far. But would love to see him back, obviously, and a great kid as well.
Be a great captain, Mike. Just saying.
He would. Yeah. He would. Yeah, I'm sure he's listening. So
don't think he's not, man. We're getting more and more every week.
It's true. It's true. I'm not ruling it out.
That's right.
Not ruling it out. So those are our final score predictions, offense, defense, player of the game. Let's get into our last segment. No man knows the future. Our picks for college football week 10, which is insane to say. Some pretty good games, probably the best slate of games in terms of actual meaningful, college football playoff implication type of stuff. Slate of the season. We'll start with Tennessee at Georgia, a battle of 2 top 4 teams, including Tennessee number 1. Georgia at home, 8-point favorites, over under 66. Something tells me the Georgia defense is going to get the better of them at home in this game. 8 points, I think, is a good line by Vegas. Good job there. Tough to cover that, but I think Georgia will. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs.
They've got the experience in the big games, and they rise to the occasion in those games. I see Georgia covering and winning by 2 scores.
Can you run through the line for me one more time? It's 8.
Georgia's an 8-point favorite, over under 66.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. They have a they're starting to kind of develop that LSU 2019, just in terms of explosiveness. And I think that Joe Burrow LSU team went, I believe, if I remember correctly, they went into Alabama and won a game like that. I think it was a 1-2. That is a team right now that is just Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt. They are just firing on all cylinders. I wouldn't be surprised if they win it outright, but I definitely think they'll cover the 8 points.
No, it's going to be a good game. That'll be the 3:30 on CBS. So leading into what everyone will go right from that game to the Michigan Rutgers game on BTN.
Well, those who aren't watching the Michigan State Illinois.
That's true.
Yes,
that's true. So you have a couple games going on there.
That's on the Home Shopping Network, by the way, for people who don't want to watch that one. I'm sorry. Continue.
Tune into that. By the way, Jake Butt, we get him on the Michigan call. So excited to rewatch that already. Even before the game happens, I'm excited for it on BTN. So enjoy that, everybody. And then Alabama at LSU, night game in Baton Rouge. LSU 13.5-point underdogs at home, over under 56.5. That seemed high. That seemed high to me when it came out. I think LSU has a chance in this game, but it kind of scares me a little bit. The Vegas views it this way. Since it's 13.5, I would go outside of that and take Alabama. But if you move the line maybe a little bit, stay within 2 scores, potentially LSU. But I'll go Alabama. I'm
going LSU to cover, and I like at night. I think Brian Kelly's team's getting better, and I like them to. I like them to keep this one close. I think they'll lose, but I think they'll cover.
Yeah, this one has sucker bet written all over it, but I'm going to go with LSU. And Michigan fans, PSA for you. If you want Alabama, the boogeyman, so to speak, to get knocked out of the playoff race, because they are lingering right on your heels, you have to root for Brian Kelly this week. I'm sorry. You have to root for Notre Dame this week. I'm sorry. You have to root for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin next week. So tough pill to swallow. But all that to say, I'm going to go with LSU to cover in this game.
When does TCU play at Texas? Isn't that coming up in a week or two?
I'm not sure exactly.
But I do think they do. Come on, Hutch, get on that for us. So, we'll see that that's going to be a big one too, because you want TCU knocked out of the picture as well.
I agree. And speaking of this, so the debate, this week after the Tuesday night college football playoff, the committee releases the rankings. Clemson. I mean, I don't agree with it. I think Michigan should have been ahead of Clemson. I think a lot of people feel that way from a national perspective, and around, Michigan and all that. And the Big Ten feels a little bit slighted, but Clemson at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 3.5-point underdog at home. TCU and Texas will play on Saturday, November 12th.
My man Hutch, I knew I could count on that guy.
Appreciate our stats department there, our research department. So Notre Dame, 3.5-point underdog at home, over under 44. DJ Uiagalelei is still the starter for Clemson, despite Cade Klubnik coming in that game against Syracuse. They had a bye last week. I want Notre Dame in this game, as you said. I mean, make things interesting. We want to, cover a playoff here this year, but I do think Clemson's going to come in there. I don't know. I just don't trust Notre Dame. They're so up and down to me.
They are, but this is the kind of game that they steal and win at home. So, and I think I got Notre Dame winning this one and doing Michigan a favor, which is really going to send their fan base into a tizzy.
Every time I look at Marcus Freeman at the end of a competitive game, he just has this stupid deer in the headlights look in his face, and I expect to see that on Saturday night, and it won't help Michigan. The one time that Notre Dame could help Michigan, it won't happen. So I think Clemson probably wins by a couple scores. So I hate that I feel that way, but it's what the gut says.
Yep. Last game, Michigan State at Illinois. Illinois 17-point favorite at home, over under 41.5. 8 players out for Michigan State, including Jacoby Windman. Disgusting game. I don't know. Something tells me that Michigan State's going to somehow cover that. I don't know how, but, I don't think Illinois is explosive, to just totally pound you. I think they can, but I'll take Michigan State to stay inside the number.
I've got Illinois something like 27-7. I don't think there's any way. They've got 8 players out, several starters. I mean, if you're counting on Ben Van Sumeren and they're in the middle, I think he's probably going to have to play. And I don't think he made the trip to Michigan. So, if it's not him, then who is it? Right. So that's just I think Illinois routes them.
This is in Champaign, right?
Yes.
Illinois. Michigan State doesn't run the ball, so
Right.
I just feel like Illinois' defense is going to be able to sit on that. Their season's over and they've been shell shocked, so their own fault, by the way. I'm not letting them off the hook for that, but yeah, Illinois.
There you have it. That's our show for this week. Michigan Rutgers 7:30 on Saturday night, Big Ten Network. Jake Butt, Brandon Gaudin on the call, so enjoy that, everybody. We'll see some of the Michigan contingent that makes the trip over to Piscataway. Excited for this weekend, and we'll see everyone next time.